diverse range of things in my body. And from me, only watch it. You're gonna run just fine versus crossing the bridge. She's like,
I don't know either. It's like, actually,
It takes like 2 hours.
Oh, yeah. I was just planning on like so
I kind of want to.
Hey Thomas, how's it going?
Started recording.
What?
Started recording already.
Sure.
So, other than that, yeah.
You already got it started?
Yeah. Maybe not chalk today.
Got chalk? All stuff? Ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Ed. What's going? What? Yeah. Terrible time of year, isn't it? End of the semester? Okay, it's just quiet. Yeah.
What's the class you and Bruce are teaching again next semester?
Yeah, sustainable energy.
Okay.
Actually, he's teaching. I'm not. I'm just. I don't know why they put me on there.
Oh.
I'm listed on there.
And do you need your guys' approval for it to like be enrolled or?
No, you probably have to. I think technically it says that, but in our department, this Cassie or Katie can just take it in the class.
Okay.
You don't have to. She doesn't have to ask. She'll just put you in there.
I'm having my high school friends over, like the 16th, I guess, is over.
Is it count towards the each minor?
What?
Does that class count towards the each minor?
It doesn't. It will.
It does not, but it will.
But you could probably get. You could probably get special dispensation.
Okay. Yeah.
From someone like me who would approve that. It's actually everything.
Nice haircut. Okay.
So are you select-
Finance, I want to work in education, that's why I want to stick with those.
Probably get a special. There's some electrical.
Okay.
I have to look again. I have to go look at the minor. It wasn't like.
This was 4193 or something.
It's 4193. It's only because it's not, you know, it's not. Finally. Next year it'll be like 40, 43. 21. Right now it's.
Yeah, I was looking for it on the minor sheet.
Yeah, it would be on the minor sheet.
Okay.
It could be something. Okay, so look at that right here. Look at you people. You people look like.
Maybe they like reduce that.
It's just like weighted to this side today. Usually it's weighted to that side. I don't know what's weighted to this side. Look at this. Wow.
Just that, I wanna see.
Okay. You guys love this? Okay, so now I want anyone over here, like on this side of this line. Do you know who that is? That's you. Okay, so you need to think about the energy transition. So I want some. So I'm going to put two words up here in addition to these. So enabling. You ever heard that word? Enabling. And, so think about the energy transition. So how can the corporate world enable or limit? So think of enabling conditions or limiting conditions of the corporate world. Just think about it amongst yourselves. You can talk about with the neighbor or just think about it in your own head. Well, I want you to come up with a limiting or enabling condition that would how the corporate world helps or harms the transition from dirty energy to clean energy, right? Or fossil fuel to renewable. Okay, just think about that. You guys, right here, is about the same number, a bigger area. You guys take up more space. The space hogs. Think about it from the community perspective, like you said, the community. Could be your hometown, your church, could be whoever you hang out with on the metaverse, right? Wherever you hang out, whatever you do at the bar, I don't care, it could be your bar community. You know, think about how that enables or limits the transition from fossil fuels to renewable, okay? Okay, now this is really hard to figure out, okay? I know you guys are wondering. But, you know, think about the politics of it, right? So the political part, right? What enables it or limits it, okay? Transition. So everybody can either in their own head come up with an enabling condition or a limiting factor. So this would be like, what kinds of, a bunch of politics, let's say policies, right? What policies would enable it, right? Policies? Sorry about that. Okay. Don't tell my kids I got something wrong. I don't want them to believe that I'm human. And I think I figured that out. And you guys think on the economic side, okay? Or just think about it for a couple minutes, and we'll talk about it, okay? Just for a couple minutes. Then we'll summarize, when we're done. We'll call it a year, except for the last 2 days of class. I really settled on it. Transcript, embarrassing. The transcript, it's embarrassing.
That would be, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the series.
Done or something.
What?
Done.
Oh.
It's like
We're
reminding
very
me.
excited about our patient.
Me too.
Oh, you paid your papers.
Yeah.
You guys all writing papers?
I want to. I think it's right as of now. Yeah, that's the goal. We'll see how I feel once I get done.
I don't know how much.
Just write the paper. It was like,
Write it.
just write it.
So it's max 10 pages, right? Max.
Because of all the gas.
So it's my preference, if you go over 10 pages, I'm not gonna penalize you. You go like 40 pages, I might get upset. I would if everybody had to write this, I signed it that way. It's interesting. I don't mind reading that. Just don't write a 40-page boring report.
Like other economic.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah. For more money. Just for more money. Yeah.
That's a bad idea. We're doing that already, we have inflation.
Listen, This is the sarcasm trigger. I'm raising it.
You're sarcastic.
Sarcasm
You
trigger.
know how hard it is to tell sarcasm when you can't see people's facial expressions?
That's why we have a sarcasm trigger.
And your voice is already affected by these masks, right? It's really hard to tell sarcasm.
My dad was about how we're gonna procedure. He had like Asperger's with knowledge of looking sarcastic.
Yeah.
So Mr. Hard mixed. All right, this is this part. I need the trumpets really loud. The guy would get really confused, so Mr. Hard like
Every time.
All right, where should we start? Should we start in the middle?
yeah.
No, community, you guys got community. Let's talk about some enabling things, let me find an eraser first. Feel like I stuffed that corporate, I hate the corporate community, so I gave it such a small space. But I get a little more space here. All right, we got community, we got. This is the enabling commission, communities. This is the transition. Here. Yeah.
One of the things I sort of thought of was like the power of like social pressure. So like if maybe you see your neighbor like got a new solar roof and you then think like you should do that, or they got like an electric car.
Does that stuff really work?
I think like maybe not at first, but it's sort of like a exponential curve. I feel like once you get enough people to do it, sort of falls like dominoes.
Yeah.
On top of that, there's like the power of like your HOA board, or I know that there are some cities or like townships in California that require you to, if you're building a new home, you need to put solar panels or have your energy come from sustainable energy source.
Yeah.
So that could be something out of your community.
All right, yeah, I like it. Okay. Yeah.
This could be like enabling or limiting, but maybe it is like of that, like certain town areas, so places around Columbus, so like Randy, for instance, can be more Democrats, so they may feel this kind of social pressure, of, like feeling inclined to like think a certain way about policies.
Yeah. So it has a big effect on the policies they choose, right? You see that at every level, right? You see that at the local level, at the state level, at the national level, it's a huge effect, right? Yeah, okay. So community can have a huge effect on the political side and the economic side. Yeah, I like this with the social pressure. Is it, so you think it really works? Really?
I think it depends on your relationship with your community.
How so?
I mean, like, if you're close with your community and they're like, there's someone in there who's like moving over to like renewables and it's like explaining to like why they did it and like, you know, it's like really passionate about it. Like, I feel like you might be more inclined to like listen to that and like be interested in doing that versus like if you hate your neighbor puts up solar panels, but then you're just gonna be like, oh, my neighbor is stupid solar panels.
Yeah, so if it's the wacky neighbor down the road that nobody likes, it's not gonna work, right? Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Every neighborhood has someone like that. I mean, I'm that guy in my neighborhood. No one likes me. Or you guys know that, but you know. But yeah, okay, so, well, interesting. So social pressure, so some good examples of social pressure where it's worked out really well. You must have some examples in your mind. Well, you said sort of solar panels, put them on, right?
Yeah, I mean, I live here in Central Ohio, so like not many people use solar panels for their homes yet, and there's also just not a lot of sun for it. But I'd say at least with like Tesla's, like say starting like 10 years ago in my community, like they used to see one a week. Now you see 15 every time you leave your house, and it's like.
So it's a great example. So
I
even
feel
though
like
it's like the
it's
most expensive
slowly-
car you could buy, right? People still buy it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Another thing, it's like pretty smaller thing, but it still has to do with like renewable practices would be like the adoption of reusable water bottles. Like that's been a huge trend, at least for young people. I guess guess our generation recently, like almost everybody you see has a reusable water bottle, whereas that may have not been the same with a lot of people using like plastic water bottles 10 years ago.
Yes, there's resistance to code, right? You don't want to just go buy a stupid Dasani out there, right? You want to get your water bottle and not use a new piece of plastic every time, right? Yeah, okay. And then there's social pressure on that. I mean, you're the person walking around with the Dasani, you know, people get upset, right? They might say something to you. At least they won't talk to you. Okay, I like it. Yeah.
Especially in like suburban communities, I feel like there's a sort of culture of like paying attention to your neighbors and like trying to have like this competition of like who has the nicest garden, who's the nicest lawn. Like, I think solar panels can become that sort of power symbol of like you're showing off that you're like the most green household, especially as like our generations grow up a bit more and like start owning homes and all that.
Yeah, so we can transform what it means to keep up with the Joneses, you always used to say, right? So you're always trying to keep up with your neighbors and trying to make sure that, you know, your yard looks just as nice and everything like that, right? But now it's about, you know, don't spray so many chemicals. We go out there and spray vinegar, not some chemical, right? I don't know, something like that. Bring a bunch of bees in rather than a bunch of stupid flowers, stuff like that, right? I'm in so much of my backyard is such a mess because my wife is all like this. She just wants like this flower in this garden for like these stupid butterflies and bees and stuff like that. I'm like, bees, butterflies, it can't just be grass. I got all these weeds growing back. They're taller than me. It sucks. I don't know what to do with them. My neighbors are all yelling at me. Just kidding. They love me, but I think they actually love her. They hate me. Yeah, that's all kind of the cool thing now is to have sort of a, you know, it doesn't have to look so manicured, right? Or maybe that's a changing, so social pressure, really interesting. And maybe, you know, how do you get it to change, right? Different norms, right? Accept different norms. Yeah.
I was gonna say another one would be like attitude towards public transportation. Like,
That's not changing. Nobody wants to get on the bus. I mean, come on.
yeah, but I feel like
I'm trying to joke about that. You're always laughing. Always laugh. You make me feel better. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Public transport, right? Did you just call me old? Someone just called me old. Tesla. What's a Tesla? What do you say? Public transport is changing, yeah?
Yeah, I was just saying, like in Columbus, for example, like, again, I live outside of the city. If I want to drive downtown to go to the Blue Jackets game or something, like, there's no train to get out. You have to drive. And I feel like if there's a better train system or,
You might use
I
it.
mean, there is the bus, but the train just always feels a little bit easier than a bus.
So you want a train?
I think it'd be helpful.
What a tram do?
Honestly, don't know the difference. That's just the,
You didn't drive.
yeah.
I thought I would sound cool. Okay, yeah, public transport, maybe it's changing, maybe it's not, I don't know. Social pressure is a good one. You know, there's interesting experiments on social pressure. This is the kind of cool stuff where this guy literally just to show how effective it was. You know how these recycling programs for like your bath towels in hotels, let's say can use your bath towel for another day, right? So these guys literally tested this thing out where they were trying to figure out ways that the signs could be made in a way that would convince people to use the same bath towel for 2 days in a row. This is like 20 years ago back when they first started this stuff out of the hotels. And what they did is they tried the signage out and you know, they basically started out, they used the idea that, you know, they had two signs. One sign was, would you join with the person who stayed in this room last night and save your towel, right? And then the sign for the other rooms was, you know, would you just join with other people who have stayed in this hotel and save your towel? And the one where it was, would you join with the person who stayed in this room, like 3 to 1, got more people to not put the towel in the dump, right, each time, right, to actually reuse it. Which is really interesting. It means that you're creating community with someone who you don't even know, but who slept in the same bed that you're sleeping in, right? It's kind of wacky if you think about it, but there's just the idea that, the social pressure is really, really important. And even the most tenuous link is really important, right? Which is just you staying in the same room as someone else, right? Which is about as, I mean, it's a pretty long link, I hope, between you and the person who stayed in the room before you, right? But there still is a link. But it was really strong enough to, get people to actually, recycle or reuse their towels. So it's kind of cool, right? Social pressure. I think, yeah, you're right. That's what we don't think about it enough, but can actually help us make a lot of progress on environmental stuff. But may also go the other direction, I think, as you pointed out, political leanings, right? That there was a lot of studies that showed that everybody who goes to Whole Foods was much more likely to purchase Priuses than Teslas. But people who went to Safeway and Kroger were much more likely to drive pickup trucks, right? So, if you think pickup trucks are a lot less gas mileage friendly than Priuses, then obviously, there was a community of people who are sort of love to drive. Not against pickup trucks, love them, they're great and everything like that, but they're just not gonna do the same thing for the gas mileage, right? Okay, so let's see, how about economic? What'd you guys say?
So a lot of this ties into either like policies that directly impacting the economy or with corporate, which is like sort of the free market driving it. But countries that have a lot of wealth surplus, like the United States, are gonna really be more able to participate in the energy transition early.
So wealth enables?
Yeah.
Okay, why is that? What is the causal thing that makes wealth enable?
So there's that greater ability to pay for like infrastructure
Okay.
changes.
Man, can I even spell this? I got it. That's right, right? You said infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
So if you conceive of those famous trains they were talking about over there as being infrastructure, right? Then, that's something that maybe wealthy countries can better pay for,
Mhm.
unless you're the US. Right? Yeah. Okay.
We've also got a lot of pressure on corporations now from investors to start switching to renewables. So they really want to have that badge of like you saying that you're going to have a certain percentage by 2030.
Okay, so investors, they're stealing a territory. Did you guys talk about investors over there? Yeah, maybe not. Are investors part of your stuff or their stuff? Can they have it? They can have it, investors, okay.
It's like how do you separate it from both policy and corporate?
Well, I don't know. But investors are people basically, right? So investors are people who can push or promote something. So I guess I would probably keep it in economic, but it could also be corporate, right? In the sense that investors can be the thing that tilt the corporate, enable the corporate world to push towards renewable energy quicker, maybe, right? I think I put them as stakeholders. So
Okay.
let's stick them over to corporate, but we'll keep them there for now. Yeah.
This is kind of policies also, but like opportunities like cap and trade or like carbon credits and this type of monetization of sustainability.
So like economic policy instruments, right?
Yeah.
All right, so there's a lot of overlap kind of between those areas, but certainly, to the extent we could use policies that don't detract from the economy to improve or quicken the transition, right?
Yeah.
Those would be quote unquote good policies, right? At least it would help enable the transition. Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah.
General prices for renewable energy are going down and becoming comparable with fossil fuel prices.
So technology change is driving down cost prices. Okay.
I'm gonna say storage is really expensive right now.
You mean like energy storage?
Yeah, like battery storage.
That's a limiting factor, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. One for which we need the technology change, right? Yeah. Yeah, so storage is really slowing things down at the moment. Right, if we could have these great batteries or different ways to store stuff, we can figure out that technology and make it cheaper in particular. That would help out a lot. It's almost if that would make everything just work, right? Yeah. Okay. All right, what about policies? You guys got? Anything to add? What was the people here in the middle?
One of the things we talked about was like how they just made that cap and trade system for like carbon dioxide.
Okay,
'Cause that's kind of
so I'm gonna take the ones that she mentioned in the back. I'll just write them out, cap and trade, carbon taxes. What else?
Carbon credits,
I still didn't hear you.
carbon credits.
Carbon credits, yep. So credits are kind of part of a cap and trade system. All right. What are the policies? Is it you rid of policies? New policies? Get rid of hockey. I mean, what sport is worse for the environment than hockey? You're freaking on ice. I mean, you're gonna make the ice up. Yeah, it's not like they're playing on a pond.
Golf,
What?
golf,
Golf?
yeah. Takes a lot of water.
There's plenty of land for
A lot of
golf.
gas to.
You don't have to make it nice like that, but you have no
But
choice
they
but to play
do.
stupid hockey in Ohio on some stupid piece of ice that they made up. And in Florida, it's even worse. I mean, come on,
You have race car driving.
race car driving. Well, they can do it in electric cars now, though.
That's true.
That's kind of off subject. Okay, what else? What are the policies? What else you got?
And nothing like specific, but I feel like just like more policies there are, that's not gonna enable the transition to energy more.
So use whatever you can. Kind of throw everything at it.
Sure.
Okay.
I just, like, there won't be a policy as long as you can't use like,
Okay, there has to be a policy approach because there's got to be some limiting policies, right? Some that would.
I feel like it's just gonna be more likely to enable it, like, no one's gonna be like, you're using way too much wind, you gotta use coal.
Well, what about these, concerns about tax policies that enhance people to drill for oil, right? So there's the, the subsidies for oil and gas are what? There's the fact that you can accelerate depreciation. So when you put in so anybody who builds a factory gets to depreciate the factory, right? There's a cost of building the factory, you get to depreciate the factory, so you get to pay, or you get to deduct from your taxes the depreciation, the loss of that asset, the value of that asset, right? So when you drill an oil well, so typical plants or companies that build plants get to depreciate those assets over 10 years, right? But if you put in an oil well, you get to do it over 3 years, right? So that's because it's 7 less years that they get to do the depreciation quicker. That allows them, that's basically considered a subsidy, right? So these subsidies help the oil and gas industry grow, right? So these are not great policies that enable things, they limit things, right? So some policies limit. Would you agree on that at least?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are subsidies for like putting on personal solar panels or like tax credits.
Yeah. So there are some sort of enabling subsidies. So for solar panels are enabling, right? They have a lot of those in California, right? Those enable subsidies for oil and gas limit. Right. What else? Policy-wise.
We also kind of talked about like for nations that are trying to spur economic development, like it might not necessarily be like something that says like, oh, like use oil and gas, but it might be something that like, because it's incentivizing like rapid development, that it might come at the expense of the environment. So depending on like what like caveats are put into like those kind of policies that are.
We haven't talked a lot about that development pathways in other countries, right? That's a good point. I mean, so we'll put that right in the middle, sort of development. But that, I mean, I guess we did talk about it. With respect to, say, for example, mid-income countries becoming more wealthy, like China, India, Brazil, et cetera, right? But yeah, I mean, it's, think about all of the policies that, countries like China or India in particular, right? India's expected to grow from relatively low income to sort of even just middle income, right? It's got 1 billion people. I mean, they're going to be making a lot of choices policy-wise. They're going to have a huge effect on this transition, right? The decision about whether or not to, not so much to subsidize, but whether to allow coal-fired power plants. And that was a whole huge thing that came out of the Glasgow meeting, was whether or not India would sign on to a pledge not to use coal after 2030 for new power plants, right? So, yeah, so this sort of development pathway is really critical sort of decisions there that countries are going to be making with respect to policies that are going to have huge effect on the sort of renewable future for them, but also will affect us, right? I like it. Okay, corporate, what do you got? The corporate people, they just sit there smugly making their money, taking it to the bank. They're just gonna go out and have a drink after this, not even care about the rest of us. I can see it on their faces. Past faces. What do you got?
They have like more opportunities for research and development.
Oh.
Innovation.
We can talk about that. Innovation, I like it. So do you think most innovation comes from private companies or does it come from the government? What do you think?
I mean, like absolutely like private, and especially the huge that Tesla, Apple.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It does seem like most of the innovation really comes out of the private sector, right?
I mean, like making money is not their priorities anymore. They're focused on sustainability. But like for smaller size business, they're more focused on making money. So I mean, that's sustainable.
Yeah. I think a big change, in particular in the US, I don't know about other parts of the world, but in the US for sure, most of the technology development was really government centered from like the 30s and 40s up through the 70s and 80s. But after that, government investments really dropped off a lot in innovation, R&D, and things like that. It really shifted over to the private sector. Fascinating. And you think it's with both small companies and big companies? You think it's with both small companies and big companies?
And then for me, obviously, that's only gonna happen in the big companies.
Big companies, yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, like smaller companies really also make more money to sustain themselves from the daily operations or something.
Yeah, but you know how small companies innovate with processes, right? Big companies tend to innovate with products. Small companies also innovate with products, but what usually happens with small companies, they get bought up by big companies, right? So they get a new product that's really good, they get bought up by somebody else, right? So we tend to think of them as big companies, but maybe it's small companies actually.
Especially supply chain management.
Yeah. Yeah, so process management is really processes, R&D for products and processes. Yeah, all right. Okay, what else we got?
You said that the corporate has like a far-reaching audience and can have a major effect on the messaging they can put out there. So both limiting and enabling their ability to greenwash their consumers.
Yeah, advertising, marketing reach is really big, right? It's really big, so it can go either way, right? Pluses and minuses of that, yeah. Oops, plus, minus. Right? So there could be a lot of greenwashing. But there also could be a lot of benefit. I think actually there could be some unique ways. Maybe, companies, well, so here for sure, everything we know about this stuff, right? I mean, when those guys did the hotel study, where they determined that people in the same room like to, do the same thing with their towels, right? That was not for the public sector, right? It wasn't the public sector funding that study. That was actually funded by private companies because they're just trying to trying to figure out how to get more people to reuse towels, right? Why do big companies, or I should say hotel companies, want people to reuse towels?
So they wash them less.
Because it's cheaper, right? They actually didn't give a crap about the environment initially, right? They just wanted to use the environment to make things cheaper for themselves, right? To reduce their own costs. But they discovered along the way innovative ways to use this, right? And that can be used for good or bad, right? Either way. Yeah. I like it. Yeah.
I'm not a part of the corporate group, but I thought about, a business, and one owner gets to make a decision, or a board is making the decision versus a political party making the decision, or a country. Makes the decision-making process much shorter.
Yeah. So companies can make decisions quicker and move to actually having an impact more quickly even than governments can, right? Yeah. So it's kind of it's quicker impact potentially, both positive and negative, right? Yeah. And I was sitting there, I remember when we first started teaching that 2500 class, and we had in, I forget who it was one of the CSO from a company. Which is great. But what I remember was the discussion was about basically their annual report. And he basically said that, his job, so every year, Rife invested $400 million in something. And his question was, how much of that 400 million can we get invested in something sustainable, right? And, but the point is that, you think about that, right? Every year there's 400 million. You take Rife times 50 times 100 times 500 companies, and the size of their business. So that's a lot of money that's getting invested in something every year, right? And if you can make it sustainable, if you can make those investments sustainable, then all of a sudden you've got billions and billions of dollars that are getting invested in sustainable stuff every year. That's having a quick impact, right? So yeah, I mean, it's, companies, because they're investing a lot of money every year, it's something, right? Wherever it is, whether it's new factories, whether it's human capital, making people smarter, sending people to college, whatever, right? Companies do all kinds of investments every year, have a big impact that way. It can really enable the transition. I think it is. I do most of my research is on land use, and people want to basically sequester billions of tons of carbons, agricultural soils and forests, and governments can't spend that much money. It's all got to come from the private sector, right? So the only way that's going to happen is if the private sector does it. So I think policies are awesome. We want to get a lot of stuff done. I think we do look at the corporate sector. Okay. All right. Well, that's good enough for that. So what is the point of that? So the point is that just hopefully as you sort of move on, you start thinking about the sustainable transition, the movement of our economy from whatever dirty fossil fuel based crap that we do right now to some green stuff. You guys can figure out how to move it more quickly. The people that passed it. That's on you, it's not on me though. Okay. If it doesn't work out, it really is all your fault. Right? So I want you guys to give you a direct memory of this class, all right? That it's all your fault. I'm just kidding. I like to leave things on a bad note, don't I? Oh man. Okay, so on a positive note. Oh man, I gotta put these things down. It's good stuff, isn't it? Enabling, limiting. Don't you guys like those terms? Use those next time you're in the bar. You're talking to somebody. See, I was thinking about something that would enable the transition to a green future. It happens to be that we drink 7 more beers. I drink 8, you drink 6. We average 7. Okay, just I don't know, come up with something. Enable.
Are you paying?
Or root beers. No, I never pay for beer. Why would I do that? Okay. So what do we do? So this is just to remember what we did in this class, since we're at the last stage of the class. Since the next two classes are your classes, not my classes. And this is just a review for the final exam. So key concepts, energy demand, right? We talked a lot about that at the beginning. So remember, that is going to be on the final exam, some of it, somewhere, somehow. All right, will be on the final exam. So we had a lot of things from the demand side. We talked about population, economic growth, how they influence and affect energy demand. We had that crazy Kuznets curve. And we saw it two ways. We saw how increasing incomes do what? They do cause an increase in energy consumption, in particular right now, in a way that moves us towards dirtier energy, right? There's a lot of those countries that are increasing income right now are choosing dirtier energy to use, in part because that's the main option that they have. Hopefully, we'll be able to come up with some policies or some investments from companies that will allow them to make different choices and maybe we can flatten that curve out, right? That'd be awesome. We can do that in the development process. Whoever mentioned the development process over here, let's hopefully, when I don't know about India, but the country after India that's getting big, I don't know what country that is, maybe Indonesia, that's already big in terms of number of people, but really growing in income, maybe they'll be able to make different choices, right? They'll be able to make choices that rather than growing with a lot of coal-fired power plants or a lot of natural gas power plants, they'll be able to grow with a lot more solar, right? So we'll hope that we can flatten out this environmental Kuznets curve in the future, but for now, we're kind of stuck with this. Things get worse, and ultimately they get better. In rich countries like ours, people do make choices for greener energy if they have more income. People do make choices to conserve energy if they have more income, and we showed some data about that, right? So that is true out there. And remember, we talked about price elasticity and income elasticity. So remember those concepts. Some of you may get to use them someday. They are helpful to use, especially if you're doing, projections or something like that in the energy industry. All right. Talked about supply, right? Marginal cost is an important concept. And we have this sort of picture here that shows that, don't rely on somehow running out of fossil fuels to solve the energy transition, because it ain't gonna happen. Right? We're never running out of stuff. There's just too much of it. Yeah.
I just want to confirm one of the questions on the
Previous one? Yep.
For a question, how do higher income and representation affect demand for energy, the type of energy we consume? We obviously demand more energy because we're using more electrons nowadays in urbanized settings, and the type of energy we consume will be in the future like more clean, so to speak. And income begs, the higher the income, the better source of electricity, but also the higher use of electricity.
Yeah, so the higher income part is that it depends on where we are on the environmental Kuznets curve, right? If we're a really low income individual or country, as our income grows, we tend to just consume more energy. And right now it tends to be dirty energy, right? As if we're sort of middle income, we're going to higher income, and we'll kind of actually can make some choices to actually consume less energy. And we can make some choices often to consume cleaner energy, right? So this kind of how do higher income and urbanization, so in particular, how does higher income affect energy? Well, it depends on where you start, right? In terms of your energy consumption and the kind of energy that you consume. Urbanization, though, actually, urban places consume a lot less energy per person than rural places, right? So urbanization tends to just benefit energy consumption on a per capita basis. It just takes less energy to live in an urban place than a rural place. Does that help, Liam?
It does make you very.
Okay, so on the supply side, we went through a lot of the major sources of energy. How abundant are the supplies? We talked about the levelized costs. We did discounting, really simple discounting. We're not going to do a lot of difficult discounting on an exam, but you do need to understand the concept of discounting, right? A higher discount rate does what? Does it value the future more or less? Less, right? A higher discount rate values the future less, right? A lower discount rate values the future more. That could easily be an exam question. In fact, it was on the last exam, right? For most of you, or just everyone got some variant of that question, right? So that'll be there. Okay. So we talked about supply and demand, use them for doing trend analysis. That'll be there. We talked about cartels, natural monopolies, government price regulation. So some of that will be on there, right? Then we went into externalities. It's kind of the second half of the class. You know, we didn't do a ton of benefit cost analysis, but keep that in your mind that, you know, at the end of the day, the reason why we often could or would use policies, well, it's kind of behind the screen here, but we would want to use policies to help promote the energy transition is simply because there's an externality of the fossil fuels, right? Especially the climate externality is big enough, the social cost of carbon is big enough. The benefits of a policy like a cap and trade or a carbon tax or a renewable fuel standard or a CAFE standard for cars, the benefits of those generally would tend to outweigh the costs of implementing the policy because of the externality, right? Okay. Questions? Right, whatever. Boy, I went through that quick. So we talked about policies. Oh, renewables. I thought I went through a whole bunch of them really quickly. My God, you guys probably would love to go. You got 10 minutes left. I mean, really got 30 minutes left. We're done in 10 minutes. Does that sound great or what? Okay, so what are renewables? What's happening to the cost of producing renewables? You guys all know that. You can say it off the top of your head. It's like you're in a trance. Repeat with me. They've gone down, right? They've gone down. Okay. Will they keep going down? What do you think? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Hopefully so. Be great. Economics are looking good. We talked about these renewable energy credits. Keep those in mind. They do improve the demand for renewable energy. So it's good to have them. You know, this has been a real change between renewable energy credits and carbon offsets nowadays. A big change that I've seen in the last 10 years is that, you know, 10 years ago, people thought renewable energy credits were terrible. Now, today, I rarely hear people say that they let somebody get out of something because they're actually just something that improves demand, right? So this is actually a good thing. We've kind of made progress on that. And so renewable energy credits are an important part of that market and an important part of helping us get more renewables out there. Surprised nobody sort of mentioned that. That's an interesting one because it's somewhat of a policy, but in a state like Ohio where renewable energy credits aren't worth anything in the state of Ohio, there really it's just a pure demand effect. That is because some people actually want to have renewable energy credits. They want to know that some energy is being produced in a renewable way. They create extra demand for solar power and wind power in a place like Ohio. Beyond any regulation, right? It's just simply a function of the fact that people value that. All right. Okay, so policies, how we try to shift the energy system. So we have pollution policies. We talked about the efficiency of different types of regulations. We moved into sort of climate change. Just keep in mind it's a stock pollutant, right? So this is the real difficulty of climate change. That's why we have to do the discounting, right? That's why we have to think about the discounting. Because literally anything we do to slow climate change by affecting carbon today is not really going to benefit you and I. Really, it's not. It's going to benefit people far in the future, far even further down the road from you and I, right? Because the carbon lasts up there for such a long time. In other words, we baked in most of the climate change that we'll experience in the next 30 years is already baked into the system, right? The carbon's already up there. We can't affect that. What we can affect is the carbon that we get in the atmosphere that affects people in 30 to 60 years from now, right? And even further. So that's why this discounting has such a big impact, because if we use a positive discount rate, it means that, man, if we're discounting the benefits to somebody who's living 30 to 60 years from now, right? That's your kids, right? My grandkids, I guess. So as people way down the road, then, you know, we're effectively kind of ignoring those damages if we're discounting those, right? We're saying, yeah, they experience billions and billions of dollars worth of damages, but then when we discount them, it means they're only worth millions. And so we decide not to do anything about carbon. So that's, the stock effect here just has a huge effect on climate policy. And it's a reason why we've had such a tough time, making climate policy work. And then the fact that it's global, that, you can have free riders out there, that people like the US can free ride, now see China can free ride, now India's free riding, right? So everyone gets their chance to free ride, right? We had our chance, now somebody else's chance. The problem is that, it makes it harder to solve the problem, right? Because of the idea that free riders can exist. It's difficult to sort of herd the cats in the global policy arena, right? Maybe we can use trading and carbon credits to help, but gotta have a policy first. Whatever. So the more important thing is the final exam. Final exam is on Friday, December 10th. That's next Friday. It's 1 week from this Friday. All right. It's online. It can be taken anytime between 8 a.m. and 11:59 p.m. So if you pay attention to the actual exam schedule for the class, the exam would normally occur between 4 and 5:45 on that Friday if we were actually taking it in person. So you're feel free to take it between 4 and 5:45 if you want, or 5:48, I should say. Or take it any other time between 8 in the morning and 11:59 on Friday, December 10th. All right. It's online. You can take it from anywhere in the world you happen to be. I could care less, but just take it. All right. So there will be 50 multiple choice questions. It'll be open book. You got to take it alone. All right. Don't work with somebody else. Don't text with others, because I can figure all that stuff out. I'm so technologically savvy. I was talking to Google the other day, and they're all gonna follow you guys around. Make sure you don't text or email or chat with anyone else. All right. But in all seriousness, don't cheat. Just take it by yourself. Use whatever materials you want, notes, books, whatever. It's an hour and 48 minutes. All right. It'll look exactly like the midterm. The one thing that's not written on here that is true about it is that if you go and take the final exam and do better on the final exam than you did on the midterm, then I'll replace your midterm exam with your final exam grade. All right. So you can, whatever grade you got on the midterm, you can do better on this, and I'll just use this grade for both this and the midterm. All right. So I won't, if you do worse, I won't count you for a worse grade. All right. Yeah. So just do better. But if you happen not to do better, I won't count it against you on the midterm. All right. Yep.
So then does the midterm grade become the final grade as well? Like you have to do work.
That'd be great. No. If you do worse on this, you're going to get the worst grade on the final. What was that? Maybe I don't understand you.
So you said if we do worse in the final than we did on the midterm, and then you won't cover the midterm? Is that what you said?
I won't count on it against you for the midterm. Right. So for instance, let's do a couple for instances, just to make sure everyone's clear. If on the midterm you had a 75, and on the final you had a 90, then for my calculation, at the end of the day, you get a 90 and a 90, right? Right. On the other hand, you got a 75, and then you get a 65. And for my calculation, you're going to take the 75 and a 65. Okay. The hell? So I'm not going to go back and make that a 65. I would never do that. But it can only help you if you do better. Right? The point is, it can help you if you do better. And in truth, in the past, it's always helped about like 60% of class. So 60% does better. And usually, if people do worse, it's worse by like a point. It's not worse by like 10 points, right? It's not a harder exam than the midterm. The midterm was pretty hard. A couple questions.
Do we still have the extra credit to finish 100% of our work to get an extra 10%?
What did I say?
He said, if we finish 100% of our work, we get an extra 10% extra credit. If we finish 90%, we get an extra 9%. It's on the syllabus at the bottom.
It is?
Yes.
What?
Really?
Yes, sir. Been thinking on that for a while, so.
Wow. Is that on there?
Yeah.
Well, then that's on there.
Okay.
I mean, it's not really an extra, it's just part of your grade. Yeah. Is that really on there?
Yeah.
Wait, so I think it's part of the, yeah, I think it's just part of the grade.
It's just part of the grade. Whatever's on the syllabus is correct. Yes. Yeah.
It just keeps sending.
It's just-
I think the extra credit isn't going in as extra credit, like it's either going in as like.
You're not gonna be able to determine the extra credit on Carmen.
It's not actually 7%.
So it's actually ungraded assignments on Carmen. So when I go down and do the final grade, you're gonna just, I'm just gonna stick it in there. For the final grade. Okay. Does that make sense? So if you did it and you get the point for one of those extra credits, you will get that point.
It
I
just doesn't
promise
show
you.
up on-
I promise you, you will get that point. And if anyone has any questions about that after the grade is in, you can feel free to email me, and I can show you where you can do that. Right? Okay?
We can just Zoom and share your screen.
Can I-
I can't share a screen, but I can email it back.
Can I read aloud what it says and then you tell me what the vibe is?
Did you say what the vibe is? I think you'll be able to determine the vibe from the read. Can she take her mask down to read this? Because I want to make sure to get everything.
Okay, it says completion of material. It's under description of course activities. There is a 10% bonus for completing 100% of the material. If you only complete 80% of the material, you get 8%. Complete 70, you get 7%, etc.
There you have it. 10% bonus. You gotta have all the stuff done though. Yeah. Is it on the syllabus?
Yes, Kitty.
Well, there you go. You know, I'm not the kind of person who say it's on the syllabus, but you're not getting it. Screw you. I remember that. Yeah, no, it's there.
Takes me to this.
It's there to benefit anybody who did all the shit. I mean, the stuff. Yeah. Do it.
So what's falling under that, like quizzes and everything? Is it just 100% of coursework?
Yes.
Okay.
Stuff for the course. Yeah. But it all has to be done on time. And so we haven't done like quiz one. We can't do quiz one now with the credit. You know, that part of it. So, yeah. Well, they've been there since day one. Yeah. Yeah. Do it all. It's awesome, isn't it?
Just for the presentations, what's the order?
Oh, shit. Yeah. Presentations. Presentations. Yeah. So presentation. So, so now presentations are really important. So everyone, if you're going to get any credit for the presentation, you have to be here for both presentations. You got to be here both days. All right. So everybody has to be here both days. Even you, whoever's not here right now, I'm looking at you. Right. So yeah, got to be here both days. You got to take attendance. You have to participate in your own group's presentation. All right. So even if you just come up and say, "Hi, my name is such and such," that's okay. But I hope everyone participates meaningfully in the presentation. Okay, and then so be here, participate meaningfully in your own presentation. Then, as I said on the thing I sent out, we're going to have 3 groups go the first day, Thursday, 3 groups go on Tuesday. All right, and so it's the 4 groups going to go first, the against group's going to go second. They'll have a little rebuttal, right, and some discussion, right? Okay, is that clear? Okay, yep.
So when you say 3 groups are gonna go Thursday, you mean like 1 for and against, and then 2 for and against, and 3 for and against? Or only like 1 for and 1 against, and 2 for?
Well, yeah, so the 4 and the against are both going to go on the same day for whatever the question is. Now I'm going to tell you which groups go which day. All right, this is 1, this is either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, right? So now you're wondering who's going to go on the first day. That's a great question. It's a great question. This is how random it is. I'll just pick it out of the air. So 2. Who's 2? You're going first. 2 first. Got it? 2, 4 is going to be first. 2 against is going to be second. My favorite number is 17, so 7 minus 1 is 6, so 6 is second. Okay, so 6, you're going on Tuesday, on Thursday. All right, 6, 4 is gonna go, so 2, 4, 2 against, 6, 4. Thomas, you getting all this down? Thanks. 6, 4, 6 against. Okay, and then because 1 is a part of 17, and 1's gonna go third, all right? So 2, 6, and 1. I know, it's random, I'm sorry about that, what am I gonna do? I could take it 1, 2, 3, that'd be just as random, it sounds less random, but it's just as random. All right, and so that's what we got 2, 6, 1. Wow, 5, 4, 3 became the next one, so 5, 4, 3. All right, 5, 4, 3. 5, 4, 3. Got it? Makes sense? For and against? Is that clear?
Yeah. We have to dress up with that.
No.
Only two of-
Wear clothing. Okay, wear clothing. All right? Just like you would come any other day to class, all right? I mean, you can dress up if you want. It's just amongst us. I just rather have people in the room to hear your presentations, all right? There's a lot of learning that goes on with these presentations. You can already see it from the written documents, which are really good. Now, the final thing is on the written documents, is I wrote on that, if anyone wants to write an improved version of that and turn it in, I'm happy to grade it and consider giving you a better grade. This is a way, if you didn't, if we're unhappy with your group in some way, right? Then you can maybe improve your grade if you want. It's up to you as an individual to do that, or if you want to work with a team of 2 people from your group or something like that, you're welcome to do that, all right? So you just need to turn that in and put the names of whoever worked on that revision on the turned in document. Now, I created a space for people to do that on Harmon, and it's individual submissions. So if you work with one other person to submit a revision, then each of you need to submit that, all right? So you each have to put the names of the people you work with, all right? Make sense? That way, because I'm going to go through and grade them, that way I get the right, all the right names if anybody happen to do that, okay? Yeah.
Where do we post the peer review?
Oh, the peer review actually is just going to be the peer review at the end. We'll do that on next week. That's just going to be on Qualtrics. So you're basically just evaluating the people on your team. You're not peer reviewing other documents or anything like that. You're just evaluating people on your team. So each person is going to do an evaluation, private evaluation of their teammates. Okay. So I have to get that program to put up into Qualtrics. So you'll each get a link. So you'll get an individualized link, right? So I will know who submitted that, which is fine. I get to know who submitted what. And you get to say whatever you want about whoever worked on your team. That's fine. In general, almost everybody just says everybody on the team was great. Every once in a while, some 5 people say person X was not great, and then person X wasn't great. So that just happens once in a while. That's what you want out of this, right? So the point is that you get to reveal that information to me. The only people who see that are me, Bruce, and Thomas. So your teammates aren't seeing it. No one else can see it. So be honest about it. All right. That's what it is. A peer review of your teammates helps us get information that if the person really did not do anything for the final, and I know none of you in this room today are a person like this, but if anyone really did nothing for the group project, then we can at least learn that information, and they will get a different grade. Right? So that it's rare that that happens, but it does happen. Okay. So, all right. Does that make sense? So you'll all get that. I'll send that out by email to everybody. Won't really be until next week. It'll probably be Tuesday. Okay. There's a lot of stuff. I will try to get some of the rest of this with respect to that extra, not really extra credit, but that cumulative amount of stuff point, an announcement on that, announcement on this thing, announcement on the timing of who's doing what, get that out a little bit. Okay, so get that all out of an announcement on anything else that I've forgotten that I need to go over? All right, any other questions you guys have about anything, send me an email and I'll either email directly to you or send out an announcement, okay? All right, looking forward to Thursday, have a good Tuesday, all right, see ya.
So I talked to do you remember me asking if I could work with you again next semester? Okay, for like a class. Okay, so I talked to my advisor about it, and she said all is well, but because I'm subbing it instead of getting an internship, so I need you to email my advisor and just be like, can you enter page in ENR 4999? And then you get to pick the credits technically. So like, I don't know, the actual class is 2 credits. So you can just say 2 or 1.
Two?
Yeah, I want to.
Okay.
But then, and
Who's
like
your advisor?
Cheryl Walter, I'll send you an email
Yeah, send me an
and like with a little blip of what to say,
Okay.
but that's pretty much it.
No,
And
I've done
then-
that plenty of times.
Okay,
I need to know-
really?
I need to know
Okay.
which person to send it.
Okay, yeah, I'll just send you an email then.
Okay.
And then, we can figure the rest out like
Well, we don't have to do that until,
till next semester, but yeah.
January.
Is it okay if I work like 10 to 15 hours for you a week or 8 to 10?
Well, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah,
If
is
you're
that all right?
able to do it.
Okay, I'm also gonna pick your brain a lot about carbon credits because it's kind of really interesting and I might want to like do that. Like,
All right,
look
we'll
in
figure out a project on it.
that. Okay, yeah.